and press. Good morning. I'm Alice Newland, President of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County. On behalf of the League, I welcome you to today's Hot Topics presentation, What You Need to Know About Gun Laws, Florida Gun Laws. Many of us are unfamiliar with the existing Florida gun laws and unclear about the significant changes being proposed at our state capitol at this very moment. Gun rights are a perpetual political issue in Tallahassee. Prior to 1987, Florida cities and counties were passing increasingly tough restrictions on access to handguns, but the NRA successfully lobbied, National Rifle Association, Tallahassee to assign gun regulation exclusively to the state legislatures. Since then, no local jurisdiction can create gun legislation, but some local jurisdictions have refused to enforce state gun laws by creating quote unquote sanctuary jurisdictions, overriding gun safety they deem to be unconstitutional, which is currently under consideration in Manatee County. On the state level, the NRA has, for the most part, been able to get laws that they want introduced and passed by the state, sometimes terming the legislation public safety. These NRA-endorsed laws have made access to guns easier and penalties for misuse mild to non-existent. Since the state gained exclusive right to regulate, Florida has enacted laws that shielded shooting ranges from liability for environmental cleanups, a stand your ground law allowing gun owners to shoot without consideration of retreat, and a guns at work law allowing employees to carry firearms to their workplace. One major exception to this trend was a law passed in 2018 after the Parkland shooting. The Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act included creating Extreme Risk Protection Law, also known as a red flag law, which enables law enforcement to remove firearms from those that are deemed at risk themselves or to others. It raised the minimum age for the purchase of firearms from dealers from 18 to 21, and it requires a 3-day waiting period on purchases from dealers. The above gains and more could be swept away at this year's state legislative session. Today, we will get an understanding of state laws and what is positive and what is at risk with legislation currently being discussed in Tallahassee as we speak. Also, after today's presentation, anyone interested in learning more about what's specifically happening in Manatee County at tomorrow's commission meeting regarding their efforts to become a sanctuary county are invited to stay after today's presentation for a short discussion on this topic. This program is being recorded and will be available on the League of Women Voters of Manatee County website, lwvmanatee.org. It is the property of the League, and no part can be copied or reproduced without written permission from the League. Our speaker, Patti Brigham, will be answering questions at the end of the presentation, so please address your questions to Ginger McCallum and put them in chat. Ginger will present the questions at the end of the presentation. Ginger McCallum is the League of Women Voters of Manatee County Government Action Team Chair, and she is the local lead with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense America. And Ginger is our moderator today. Ginger?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Alice. I'm happy to present Patti Brigham. Patti is someone very familiar to Florida League members, as she was the president of the League of Women Voters of Florida from 2018 to 2021. And she was the keynote speaker at our local celebration of the League of Women Voters 100-year birthday in 2020. Patti grew up in Orlando and earned a BA in philosophy and an MA in liberal studies from the University of Central Florida. After several years at We Care, Inc., a suicide prevention and crisis intervention center, Patti forged a career in radio as a reporter, writer, and producer. She received a number of awards from media organizations, including American Women in Radio and Television and the Associated Press. While Patti was president of the League of Women Voters of Florida, she formed and chaired the League's statewide gun safety action team and co-founded the former Florida Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence. Today, Patti is president of Prevent Gun Violence Florida, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to promoting legislation to reduce gun violence and working in concert with other organizations to achieve this goal. Patti?
Thank you, Ginger. Thank you, Alice. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am Patti Brigham, and I see some of your familiar faces and names. It's great to see you again. And some of you are new. So anyway, if you're new to the League, welcome. You've joined an incredibly fantastic organization. Of course, I'm a little biased, but yes, today we are going to be talking about gun violence prevention. And with that comes gun violence statistics, unfortunately, and the gun laws that we currently have on the books, and some that we are advocating for, and some that we are advocating against. So I'd like to start off with a short PowerPoint presentation, and I need to share my screen to do that. Okay, can everyone see this? Yes? Okay, great. Okay, let me just, all right. So firearms and Florida. Unfortunately, firearms have become quite synonymous with the state of Florida. We wish it was not that way, but it is. So let's take a look at the current landscape. All right, I'm going to move this sidebar out of the way so I can see the, okay. So since Governor DeSantis took office, Florida has seen a dramatic surge in gun-related violence. From 2019 to 2020, violent crime incidents involving guns have risen by 21%, or excuse me, 20%. I'm having trouble seeing my screen. I'm not sure why. Okay. The number of firearm-related homicides surged 21%. Proportion of manslaughter cases involving firearms increased by 107%. And all of this is referenced by the Center for American Progress. As of 2020, guns were the most common weapon used in aggravated assaults in the state of Florida. And that is the first time this has happened since this collection began in 1995. So when Governor Rick Scott was in power, you know, we didn't have great gun violence numbers, but they certainly have gone up since Ron DeSantis took office. And of course, we're seeing a push for more easy access to gun laws this legislative session. We're trying to make people aware of that because, as the League knows, one of the best things that we can do, one of our greatest powers as the League of Women Voters of Florida, is education, public education. And currently, we and a coalition of a lot of different organizations are trying to educate the public about what's coming down the pike. And the legislative session starts March 7th, and we're currently in committee hearings right now. But what is the current status of Florida's gun laws since 2023? Well, some of these laws here that I've written came about because of the shooting at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And that shooting was actually 5 years ago tomorrow, 5 years ago, Valentine's Day. So the legislature was in session, and I want to point this out. When the Pulse mass shooting occurred in 2016, in the middle of the summer, it was June, or early summer, the legislative session they were out. Everybody was home. And so the League of Women Voters of Florida, we formed the Florida Coalition to Prevent Gun Violence, which was made up of 100 organizations plus. And what we did was we put out a request in writing and release it to the press. And we said, we want you to convene a special session to address Florida's gun laws in the wake of the mass shooting at Pulse, where 49 people were killed. What happened? Nothing. So you may remember all the press, the national media descended on Orlando, and this became a huge national conversation, which continued during the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. But the difference was session was in. So the legislators had no choice but to deal with it. So as a result, they raised, the age to purchase a gun to 21 years old. They installed what is known as the red flag law. In other states, it's known as the extreme risk protection order, which we would actually like it to be in Florida. What it currently means is that if your family member is suicidal or homicidal, you have a family member or you know somebody close to you, you can report this to the police, and the police can advocate to the court, to a judge, to have his or her weapons removed. So you see that red flag rising with someone you love and you report it. Now, we'd like to see that law strengthened and actually made a bit different. And we see bills every year now that are trying to do just that. To make it so it's not, it's not the police who petition the court, it's the family member or the good friend, because those close to whomever is suicidal or homicidal know better than police what the story is in the home. So we'd like to see Florida following other states with an extreme risk protection order and not just this red flag law. This needs to be strengthened and changed. The other law that came out of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting was a bump stock ban. And, you know, we were certainly in favor of that. A bump stock is essentially a contraption that you put on a semi-automatic weapon that turns it essentially into a machine gun and can fire a number of bullets much more quickly. I believe the shooter in Las Vegas used that. The thing is, while this ban is good, you can go on to YouTube and learn how to make your own bump stock. It's very easy. You can do it with a rubber band. You can do it with a paper clip. So, you know, the knowledge is out there how to create your own bump stock. So we approve of the ban, but it's really small potatoes. Safe storage. We have a safe storage law in Florida, which means that if you leave a loaded weapon in sight or within easy reach of a minor, that is a second-degree misdemeanor. If the minor gets a hold of that loaded weapon and shoots someone or him or herself, it's a second-degree misdemeanor. Now, one of the things that we did, we went around and talked to a lot of law enforcement officers, actually sheriffs and some police chiefs, and said, hey, you know, second-degree misdemeanor, you know, 18 years or younger, you've got to have the weapon locked up. And, you know, we prefer the ammunition to be locked separately. Why isn't there more teeth in this safe storage law? And we often heard from sheriffs and chiefs, well, you know, the family feels bad enough, and we can't really punish them for a tragedy. But we believe that the safe storage is a critical issue. There's not a day where you don't pick up a newspaper somewhere in the country and see that, say, for example, a 6-year-old has shot himself or someone by accident. And it's not an accident, it's a preventable shooting. So we'd like to see this safe storage law strengthened and possibly more consequences. Let me also mention, and I inadvertently left off, the Guardian program. The Guardian program was one of the largest laws that came out of the shooting in Parkland. That essentially allowed schools to arm personnel after a number of hours of training to be kind of the security guard at the school. And the league actually opposed the Guardian program. We do not believe, and I'm not speaking for the league today, I'm speaking for Prevent Gun Violence Florida. And also our organization, we opposed the Guardian program because we did not believe that anyone other than a school resource officer should be carrying on campus, on a public school campus. The reason being that school resource officers are almost always trained sheriff's deputies. They truly have the training how to deal with an on-campus shooter. And even when they're there, they don't always respond in kind, but we believe that they're the only ones who should be carrying a weapon on campus. So we opposed that program, and we're seeing expansion proposals to the Guardian program and expect to see more. So we're watching those carefully. In Florida, you can legally carry a concealed handgun if you file for a permit. How do you get a permit? Well, you go through the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And what they do is they do a background check. Even if you had a background check when you bought a weapon, you go through another check. And then you have to take a firearm proficiency training. Now, depending on where you go for this training is also dependent on what kind of training it is. It could be 3 hours, it could be 20 minutes. You could shoot at a target or you could shoot into a barrel. I mean, it literally, it depends on the training and who's teaching it. We do not have open carry in this state, and that means you can't openly carry your handgun or long guns unless you're hunting or fishing. And that means you can only openly carry long guns like a rifle. You cannot openly carry a handgun hunting or fishing, but you can a long gun. Why you would want to carry a long gun while you're fishing beats me, but I do see why you'd want a rifle if you're a hunter. So then we go to just recently, the Florida Supreme Court rejected a challenge on Florida's preemption laws. The preemption laws in the state of Florida are considered on firearms are considered the most draconian in the country, and that's by the Giffords Law Center. What did they do? Well, local governments do not have the power to restrict guns or firearms in their areas. Like, for example, years ago, there was a situation in Tallahassee where there was an ordinance, I believe, that was restricting gun use in public parks. Well, when Governor Scott was in office, he made the consequences of violating preemption very punitive. So, you know, the legislature had taken home rule completely away from local communities when it came to restricting guns. However, under Rick Scott, the consequences were that local official could be fined $5,000, removed from office, and that ordinance made null and void. And we saw a case in Tallahassee where something similar happened and it went to court and the judge threw it out. But there are groups ready and waiting to file lawsuits against local communities who do this sort of thing. And I believe that the group in Tallahassee was Florida Carry. So 33 cities and counties contended that the 2011 statute, and once again, I'm having trouble seeing my screen, threatening these stiffer penalties if local officials pass gun-related regulations was unconstitutional. So those 33 cities and counties said, no way, we don't like this. We want home rule. We want more control over guns in our communities. But the Florida Supreme Court came out and said, nope, and upheld the preemption law in Florida on firearms. Here are the committee weeks in Tallahassee. The interim meetings go through the 24th of February. The session starts March the 7th, and then it ends March the 5th. Now, these committee weeks, if you're able to attend, we encourage you to do so, because that is the time where if you want to speak out publicly against a bill, and I know all you league members know about this, if you want to speak out for or against the bill publicly in the Capitol, other than in a press conference, that's where you do it. However, I will tell you, other than packing the room and getting our voices on the record, those representatives and senators have already determined how they're going to vote by the time they sit down at the dais in that committee hearing. So that may sound unfair, but that's part of the wheeling and dealing in the background of the Capitol. Those decisions are being made, and that's why it's so important that you meet with your lawmakers in your district before they go up to session or committee weeks. Meet with your representative, meet with your senator, call and make an appointment, tell them, hey, you know, I'm a constituent, I want to meet with you about such and such a bill, and make an appointment, because it's better for them to hear from you in the districts. Once they get to Tallahassee and they get involved in the committee week or they get involved in the session, they get really busy. So you're likely going to see legislative aid. Now, that's not a bad thing. The legislative aides are very sharp, most of them, and sometimes they're on top of things in a better way than their representatives or senators. But so we do encourage you to meet with those legislators. Now, if you can't, then by all means, if you want to go to Tallahassee for the League's lobby days or another organization's lobby days, I believe, Ginger, you've got your Moms Demand Action lobby days coming up in March, correct? So there are a lot of lobby days that are up there by different groups. So that's certainly a good time to go. Also responding to action alerts, and I'll go into that in a little bit. So what's ahead? Well, we know what's going on right now, and I'm sure you all are aware that the legislature is pushing this permitless carry proposal, House Bill 543, and the Senate companion was just filed on, I believe it was Friday. So this bill, what would it do? Well, it would be pretty much the model of what the other states, which have it on the books, have, which is it's legal in 25 states. So Florida would be the 26th. What does this mean? Well, first of all, it means that going through the application process, the Department of Agriculture, that goes away. It doesn't happen. You don't have to apply to get a concealed weapons permit. There's no proficiency training with a firearm. That goes away, period. You don't take that background check, you know, you would have to take with the Department of Consumer Services and Agriculture. So that means that there would be people carrying guns. Maybe they bought them at a gun show where there's the loopholes. If you don't buy from the federally licensed dealer, that person who's a private seller can sell the gun without a background check. And so the system now is if you file for that permit, you have to go through the check. Even if a person bought the gun through the private seller, that person still has to go through a check when you apply for the permit. Permitting process goes away, that check goes away. So people are walking around with guns concealed. This is concealed permitless carry. This is not open carry. There's a lot of confusion about that. This is not open carry. So what that means is people are walking around with guns, and currently we have 2.6 million approximately concealed weapons permit holders in Florida. We go back and forth between Texas as to who's the winner on that. And states where permitless carry is legal, those states experienced a 22% increase in gun-related homicides the 3 years after the law's passage. So that is really disturbing. Those are alarming numbers. We already are seeing that firearm-related incidents are on the rise in Florida. I just went over that with you. We don't want that to increase. We already have a big enough problem. Florida's been the scene of 3 mass shootings since 2016. Pulse, then there was the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting, and then the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, which for many, tomorrow is going to be a very painful day. And we really do need to keep them in our thoughts and do everything we can. This isn't just thoughts and prayers. This is taking action. So what is permitless carry? I just went over that with you. No permit. That second check goes away if you haven't had the first check. Well, I'll tell you what, you know, some people, they get their permit, they get their concealed weapons permit before they even buy a gun. So say they got their permit and they went to buy a gun from a federally licensed dealer, the check would have to take place. If they bought it from a private seller, no check. That check with the Department of Agriculture catches those folks. That goes away. Okay, what else? Well, there are proposals out there that have been pushed by the current agriculture commissioner in Florida, Wilton Simpson. They aim to ban credit card companies from tracking gun sales rather. And what are these companies doing? Well, there's been a really creative solution. This largely came about because of a group called Guns Down America. And they started looking into, okay, well, we can't get the legislators to put in more restrictions. Congress can only do so much at this point. So they had this novel idea to approach credit card companies like MasterCard, Visa, American Express, and ask them to track large purchases of firearms and ammunition. Why? Well, if you look at the track record of shooters like the Pulse shooter, that shooter in about the 10 days before he committed that crime bought like 20,000+ firearms and ammunition. In Las Vegas, that shooter bought much, much more. I think it was like $50,000 worth in the weeks before the Las Vegas shooting. So this is a way where we could really prevent mass shootings, because if you start seeing these massive arsenals being bought, right? Your antenna goes up. What is this person going to do with all of these weapons, with all of these high capacity magazines? So this could prevent those shootings, or at least one or two. I mean, that would be enormous. But Wilton Simpson does not want that in Florida. And he said that he plans to fight it with these bills that were filed not long after he announced this. And of course, he blames quote unquote liberals for these gun laws. Okay, so what's been filed thus far? And there have been a lot of bills filed since, and I'm going to talk about two that you need to know about that are positive. House Bill 45 and Senate Bill 66 by Rep. Skidmore and Senator Berman, the risk protection order. That's the one I talked about earlier, that strengthening and expanding of the red flag law. Senate Bill 146 and House Bill 151, sales of ammunition, to put more restriction on those, by Senator Polsky and Dan Daly, the rep. House Bill 215, possession or use of a firearm in a sensitive location, by Rep. Rainer Goolsby. We have not seen a Senate companion, at least I haven't seen one drop. And then coming, and the news is here, that the assault weapons high capacity magazine ban bills have been filed in the Senate. The sponsor is Senator Lori Berman. We thank her enormously. She's really made gun violence prevention one of her main causes. And in the House Bill 579, Representative Ana Escamani, who's out of Orlando, and she has filed the bill. Now, ever since Pulse, the champion of the gun violence prevention assault weapons high cap ban has been Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. Governor DeSantis redistricted him, drew the map and put him in a much more conservative area. And so he lost his reelection, which was a real blow to the gun violence prevention community. What else is going on? Well, at the federal level, and I'm sure all of you remember this gentleman because he used to be in the Florida House. His bill, Matt Gaetz, he wants to abolish the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau, which is supposed to be overseeing a lot of the gun stores and monitoring the activities. They've been really hamstrung over the years by Congress, or not given the appropriate funding, and that's largely due to the NRA. But we still need that department. And he says, well, if that doesn't work, we're going to defund ATF. And if that doesn't work, we're going to take a meat cleaver to the statutes that the ATF believes broadly authorize their actions. So this is another reckless idea coming out of Congress to make guns more easily accessed, and the oversight that ATF is able to do would go away. Okay, what can we do? Well, there are a lot of things we can do, and the League is awesome at doing these things. And I know that your group is too, Ginger Moms Demand Action. Advocating, outreach to key, and I know the League is nonpartisan, but outreach to key Democrats. Let's face it, this is a partisan issue. It shouldn't be. It should be a public safety and public health issue, which it is. But unfortunately, it's become a political football in Florida. You have those on the right who are all for easy access to guns. You have those on the left who want more restrictions, or at least to moderate the situation. So yes, do reach out to them. And I'm often asked, what about reaching out to the other side? Reach out to them too. They need to hear from us. And if you go and meet with a pro-gun legislator in your district, or if you go up to Tallahassee for lobby days and you want to meet with someone on the other side of the aisle, try to take a survivor, excuse me, let me get some water. Try to take a survivor of gun violence with you. It can be a delicate ask, but some of you may or likely do know someone who survived gun violence. Some of you may be survivors yourself. Take the survivor or take yourself and tell your story, because they need to hear this isn't just some abstract thing we're talking about. This is a true impact on human lives. Lobbying, we've talked about that. Outreach, try to get involved with intersectional allies. Try to involve, if you're going to do an event on gun violence prevention, or if you're going to news conference on it, invite those who are not necessarily gun violence prevention advocates or survivors. Invite them, but you want to invite teachers, healthcare providers, parents that may not have necessarily any children in school. Those kids may be grown, but they care deeply about the issue. We want people from all walks of life, especially now with the current attack on our LGBTQ community and trans kids by our state government. That attack is putting those lives in jeopardy. We all know that any kind of negative speech or negative actions singling out a specific group of people is dangerous, especially in the times that we're living in. So, you know, we are very concerned about the safety of the LGBTQ community and this kind of hostile environment we're in. And the last thing we need to be doing is making it easier to get a gun or to carry a gun, yet that doesn't seem to matter to our lawmakers in Tallahassee. Try to have press conferences or participate in press conferences. And then why not sign up? And you get action alerts from the League of Women Voters. You get action alerts from Moms Demand Action, but sign up for our website. We put out action alerts as well. PreventGunViolenceFlorida.org. We are a partisan organization. We're a nonprofit C4 that does allow us to endorse candidates. And but we do put out action alerts very much in the model of what the League has done through the years. And we've gotten pretty good response. We're going to be putting out some more because we found out today that House Bill 543, the permitless carry bill, was just passed. This new Constitutional Rights Committee has now been agended in the Judiciary Committee in the House, and it will be heard a week from tomorrow at 8 a.m. So we hope that you will try to go up to Tallahassee and testify. We're going to be putting out our alert on that. Please do respond. We're going to be asking you to call those legislators on that committee and strongly requesting that they do not vote this bill up. One of the sponsors is on that committee, and Payne, and I think that they need to hear your voices raised. So I'm going to stop the share now as I've gone through the PowerPoint. And I'm happy to take questions at this point. And I know, Ginger, you may have questions that you were going to ask me.
Yes, I have several questions from our participants today, and then I have some others if we have some time left. So
Okay.
the first question comes from Graciela, and it's about our red flag law. And she's wondering, what is the response time from the time a family member appeals to the police to something happening?
That's a great question. It really depends on the area and the department that it's reported to. I don't have any data on the response time in each individual area. It just depends. And, you know, when you're going before a judge, you have to wait until their docket is clear enough for you. So there could be some waiting going on. And, you know, will that change if it's a family member appealing directly to the judge? We don't know. We still believe that the family member is the better spokesperson for that. And another reason is, and this isn't to knock police, but police see domestic disputes all the time. They hear from residents that they feel in danger all the time. They might not make a great assessment about what might happen in a home, whereas the parent or the spouse may know much better what could happen in the home. So we really believe that the red flag law needs to be turned into a risk protection order.
Okay, thank you. Another question comes from Alice, and she's noting that the Sheriff's Association is supporting the permitless carry bill. And, you know, where previously sheriff's departments were against, you know, expanding gun rights. What can we do about that, or what's your thought about that?
Well, we were very disappointed when we found out that the Florida Sheriff's Association was in support. We'd initially heard that they were just not going to take a position. However, they did take a position, and when the bill went to its first committee, Sheriff Gualtieri, who's long been with the Sheriff's Association, and I believe was at one time the president, spoke in favor of the bill. He testified in favor of the bill. When the bill was announced pre-filing by the House Speaker, Renner, the president of the Sheriff's Association was there and talked about how this would be better for public safety. I don't know why they think that. I mean, if you talk to some sheriff's deputies on your own, they will tell you they think this is a terrible bill. And fortunately, a couple of sheriffs have broken with the association and have come out against it. One is Orange County Sheriff John Mina. He is my sheriff, and he wrote an op-ed that appeared in the Orlando Sentinel, and he recently joined Giffords for a webinar on that. And another sheriff down in, I believe it's Broward County, came out against this bill. But unfortunately, that's just the two. Those are just the two I've heard about. Most of the sheriffs fall into step with the association. And with the Police Chiefs Association, they've been silent. We don't expect them to come out against this. It's a real shame. It's actually more than a shame. It's completely outrageous that law enforcement would be supporting a bill like this. Shame on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Nancy Lumley is wondering if the bill, the permitless carry bill, restricts places where people could carry their guns. She mentions open carry, but again, we don't have open carry in Florida, but are there restrictions against guns? Carrying guns?
Yeah, I mean, there's still places you can't carry guns. You can't carry guns into government buildings, for example, and you'll see those signs, no firearms allowed. I mean, there are schools you still won't be able to carry. Say there was a big push in Florida for a while to have concealed carry on college and university campuses. That's still prohibited. So there will still be those places where you cannot carry. Most of them will remain the same as they are now, unless we see some sort of amendment to this bill. You never know. We'll be watching for that. But yeah, it's not going to be a free for all, but you will be able to carry in public concealed without a permit.
Okay.
And let me add one thing to that, Ginger.
Yeah, of course.
There was an article that came out on the Washington Post very recently about the celebration on election night, and I believe it was held in Tampa for the governor's election victory. And he had told local officials there that he did not want any firearms at that victory celebration, but he told, I believe it was the city, to take responsibility for that. He did not want to come out and say that himself. That is true hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's very telling that you're not allowed to bring a firearm into the state house or the state senate. You're not allowed to bring a firearm into a courtroom or into a county commission, meeting, for example. So it's very telling that they don't want firearms in their own venues.
It is, yes. I believe you can take a concealed weapon, handgun into the Capitol, into the lobby area, but you're forbidden to take them where they're having their meetings, their committee hearings, onto the chamber floors, et cetera.
Okay, all right. Mary Lynn is asking, are there any sympathetic Republicans in Florida, presumably?
I have two answers for that. One is, there used to be, we always had, especially when we had those campus carry bills and the open carry bills going through the legislature back in 2014, 15, 16, we were able to go to at least one or two Republicans on key committees and say, please shut this down. And they would block the bill. And once the bill died in committee, it did not go forward. I wish we had them now. If we do, they're remaining quite silent. If you watch the recent hearing in the Constitutional Rights Committee, and I don't think I had that name quite correct. It's a very lengthy name, new committee name in the House. And the hearing was 4 hours. And the Republicans, of course, have a supermajority in our legislature right now. And none of them had anything to say. Usually they're very, animated in debate, and they ask a lot of questions, but a number of them were brand new to the legislature, and they were just following along with what their caucus wanted, what the governor wanted. And it was really surprising. And the other thing that was really surprising about that hearing was the fact that there were so many pro-gun people that spoke up and attacked the committee and the Republicans on the committee. They were very angry. They were saying, this isn't true constitutional carry. There's really no such thing. And because there was that misnomer, it was mislabeled constitutional carry for months. And the bill says what it is. It's concealed permitless carry. It's permitless carry. But these pro-gun people were very angry, and they were actually telling some of the legislators, we're not going to vote for you again. We won't vote for Republican again if you don't give us open constitutional carry. I'd never seen a hearing like that. And I know a number of my colleagues hadn't either. It was quite surprising, and couldn't help but wonder if that was orchestrated, since all of them had the exact same talking points.
Okay. All right. So a question from Holly is, what arguments resonate with these legislators in this environment? What moves them to actually balance guns rights with the public safety interests or arguments that they seem to be deaf to? That was my addition at the end there, not Holly's question.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, when we defeated open carry several years back, it was really emphasizing that Florida was a family-friendly state, a tourism state. Disney's here, SeaWorld, Universal Studios, plus beautiful beaches. And it might really turn off tourists from around the globe, especially from countries that have very strict gun laws. It might turn off a lot of tourists from coming here. That's something they need to continue to hear. Also, the lack of training. We need to continue to emphasize that. The second part, though, of the second point I want to make, and this is tough to hear. It's tough to swallow. But right now, they don't seem to care about any counter argument. We've got data, we've got a white paper we've distributed, we've got a toolkit. I know you do at Moms Demand Action. You know, our other partners in our coalition have done the same thing. These legislators in the GOP, and once again, I honor the fact that the League is the nonpartisan organization. This is a fact. It's a fact. These legislators don't care. They simply don't. And it's really outrageous that they put firearms above human lives. I mean, it seems that in some ways that we have lost our collective minds in Florida and around the country when it comes to guns. And it's been that way for a long time, but if you look at the statistics, it's getting much worse. So the short answer is not a whole lot's going to move them. I would just, you know, really encourage you that when you go to speak one-on-one with a legislator, if you can, to take a survivor. If you're a survivor, tell your story. And if they show apathy, don't be surprised. That's not unusual.
Thank you. Going back to the red flag, how would a family member who's concerned about, you know, a loved one, how would they know how to appeal, you know, to go to the police, or how would they know what to do to try to enact the red flag?
Well, currently, you'd have to call the police. The police would have to come out, file a report, and that family could advocate that the officer petition the court to have the guns removed. And that's going to be really up to the police department as to whether they're going to do that. And that's why one reason we want this change. We want the family to be able to go directly to the court and not have to go through a middleman.
Okay. And then we talked about there's some sensitive places where right now guns may not be carried. What if I'm a retail store owner or a restaurant? What if I'm a business and I don't want guns in my establishment? Can I put up a sign about that and not disallow?
I've certainly seen signs put up. Have I seen them put up in restaurants? Not really, but you're sure going to see them in stores. You're going to see them in banks, for example. You're going to see them in places where there are a lot of flammable materials. So there are those sensitive places that prohibit firearms.
Okay, and the bill isn't looking to preempt businesses, the ability to disallow guns.
No, it still allows for sensitive places. Now, I would have to go down the list of all of the places that are prohibited and look at the list of places that aren't. But you can be assured that currently you cannot carry firearms in schools, near children, higher ed, or public education. And there's a lot of concern about that. So the only place the only school where you can carry now due to a law that was passed a couple of years ago is if there is a religious institution on the grounds of a school that's affiliated with that religious institution. They can determine whether or not they're going to allow the carry there or not, because it's private. But as far as public schools, you cannot do it.
Okay, great. And Patti, would you go over if permitless carry is passed, what are the important safety? What are the elements of the permit that will be moot? You know, what will they be taking away?
The permit will go away.
Right.
Currently, if you have, unless you need one to go into a state which requires a permit, that's called reciprocity, you'll still need to get a permit, because if you go to a state that doesn't have permitless carry, you'll have to show that you have a permit for the gun. But in Florida, that permit goes away. So that means that currently, if an officer pulls you over, a police officer pulls you over, and you're carrying, hey, are you carrying a weapon? Okay, if you are, I'd like to see your concealed weapons permit. And if you don't have the permit, that's breaking the law. That goes away. Now, what you have to have on you is legal identification, like a driver's license, but no permit.
Okay. And the permit, when you go through the permitting process right now, there's a background check, training requirement.
Yes.
You must be 21 years old. I'm trying to think of the other, but so it would eliminate those guardrails
It goes away. Yes.
potentially, unless you're
Yeah.
stopped and asked, and have a concealed carry and then don't meet those qualifications.
Right. Now, if you're 18, it's illegal to own a gun because they raised the age limit to 21 in Florida after the Parkland shooting. But yeah, I mean, permitless carry means no permit. It means there's going to be people walking around with concealed weapons who do not have a permit and did not possibly go through a background check.
Okay. And you mentioned that the next stop for this bill is the Judiciary Committee a week from tomorrow.
A week from tomorrow at 8 a.m. And I know a lot of my fellow activists are not going to be thrilled about that time of day, but yes, at 8 o'clock in the morning, we really do hope to pack that committee room. The last committee room, they had last committee hearing rather, they had over 100 speakers, but the committee room wasn't completely full. We hope to change that and get that room packed with all sorts of activists and citizens who care about what's happening in Florida when it comes to gun restrictions going away.
Okay. And Patti, do you know, are there any actions planned at the state or locally to highlight and bring attention to this bill and to this issue?
Yes, I do know that March for Our Lives, we have a March for Our Lives member on our board. They're planning to have a big rally sometime in March. I don't want to give away their details. I do believe it's sometime in March. So they're going to have a huge rally. And of course, March for Our Lives came out of what happened at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting. So they will have a rally, which is quite appropriate. Our organization is planning to have a press conference as intersectional as possible with legislators, activists, and others from various walks of life. That's going to be sometime during the regular session and making sure we do it before these bills hit the floor.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you for that information. And I put your website in the chat a little bit ago. And please, if anyone's interested in getting alerts from Patti, go to her website and sign up for her alerts and her newsletter. And then you'll know what to do and when to do it, because Patti's very good at letting us know about that. And it's a real helpful resource. So thank you, Patti, very much. That was our last question today. Alice is ready to take over again.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alice, for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure to see you again. Ginger, thank you so much for moderating. And I really do encourage you all to sign up for our website because you will get our action alerts. And the more people getting alerts from various sources, the better. And please do respond, because it's up to all of us to try to keep us Florida safe from gun violence as we can. I know you all care about this issue or you wouldn't be here. So thank you very much again. And I hope you have a great day. And I'm also available anytime you have any questions. If you want to email me, please feel free. And Alice knows my contact information. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Patti. As usual, it's a wonderful, and it was quite sobering to know that tomorrow is the anniversary of the Parkland shooting. So it's maybe we could send all our legislators a Valentine from us saying "Save lives."
Great idea.
Yeah,
Great idea.
Valentines from all of us. We have two birthdays this week. We have tomorrow, the League of Women Voters is going to be 103 years old. So that's another reason to send a Valentine and say the League. But I don't think that would, I think the main thing is the emphasis on save lives, save families. It's basically aiding and abetting suicides and murder to allow these laws to get passed that take all controls off of guns. The second birthday we have this week is Wednesday, the 15th, and that's Susan B. Anthony's 203rd birthday. So we have two of them coming up. So thank all the women that vote and all run for office and our league members. Thank you for making democracy work. Please also check our calendar on our website. We have a lot of good things coming up. Exciting programs on Wednesday. This Wednesday, February 22nd at noon to 1:30, we have land use planning and development training with two past commissioners that both are experts in this field, Betsy Benak and Misty Servia. Are, you know, what's the comprehensive plan? How can we track what we're doing? How do we, are our commissioners following it or not? All those things about what's smart growth. All of that will be covered in what's considered and where we are as a county, where we're going. Our next hot topics is going to be exactly a month today, Monday, March 13th at noon. It's going to be on the Equal Rights Amendment with Rebecca Goldman, who serves as the Justice Reform Legislation and Policy Specialist with the United States League of Women Voters. So that's, you know, where's that going? So, check out our website, lwbmanatee.org. There's a lot of good information Patti gave today, and I will get that video up as fast as possible, and I will let you know where it is, because you might want to refer to that for your letters and responses to our commissioners. And if you haven't already done so, please join the league. I'm going to stop recording now.